So let's bring down our next person all the way from Japan. Distance is relative, I guess. Cairo Marsh, please come on down. Your clicker, sir. Please speak into these.
Cool. Thank you guys for the time. I'll try to explain in 6 minutes or so what we do. And I think there's a video to start. Do I hit next or does it just start? That's pretty much it, actually. I think I'm done. No, not quite. But I think Relative as a company is founded more around an idea than anything else, right? And it's an idea that's rooted in a belief that traditional ways of marketing are, for lack of a better word, wrong. They focus on how do we better motivate someone? How do we better get in action? How do we better get them to spend their money and put it in our wallets? Versus an idea that says, how do we better serve them? How do we better understand them? How do we better collaborate with them so that we create incremental value? And the idea of incremental value is value that then creates a defensible position for clients. So our goal and our belief is to focus on how we align interests. What does the consumer actually need? How do we actually serve that consumer so as to create greater value? So the principle that drives us is always that and everything that we do. So we're a new company, started last year, based in Harajuku, Tokyo. I've been out in Japan, obviously not Japanese, but I've been out in Japan for the last 7 years. So we've taken the opportunity to really build a business out there. And fortunately, in that time, we've been able to work with some leading brands from Philip Morris to ExxonMobil to Burt's Bees in the 1 year time, helping them with that idea of creating closer connection to their consumers. What we offer is basic. We're a consulting company, I like to say, where it's around what's the opportunity to bring you and your consumers in closer alignment? What's the experience strategy that will enable that so consumers actually live it and feel connected? We talk about the idea in marketing where in the past when we see ourselves as separate from our consumers as branding, but moving more to a proposition, and forgive the cheesiness, of brand being. How does the brand actually live and interact to create a sustainable relationship? And leveraged and powered that by business analytics. We're outcomes focused as an organization, people centric. It's not about revenue. It's not about short-term ROI. It's about sustainable value with the people, and it's data enabled, which allows us then to get to that. The whole idea of relationships is something that I think we all understand is intuitive, because every single person here has benefited from a relationship. Our success, society's success, business success comes from people who believe in us and allow that to happen. The reason we don't tend to market that way is because it's hard to measure. Because how do you drive that? I need to see clicks, I need to see return on investment. So what we've tried to develop is proprietary solutions that allow us to better measure the impact of a relationship. So 2 real solutions. One, what we call a customer relationship score, which looks at the dynamics of a relationship. And put in human terms, if you think about your own personal relationships are often defined by how you feel when you're around another person, how you're influenced when you interact with them, and also the things that you tangibly get and benefit. So being able to measure those to identify how a brand creates a relationship, how strong that relationship is, and how that relationship is differentiated relative to your competition, we use that brand relationship score to do that. The other part is then to be able to map that, so to look at segmentation differently. versus demographic audiences or behavioral audiences or attitudinal audiences. What audience do I as a brand want to engage with? What's my relationship with them? What are my opportunities? What are the dimensions that I could better deliver on, which would change that relationship? And also, how's my competition approaching them? So using that ability to map that, we look at these tools as a way to really drive not just relationships in theory, but actually in principle in a measurable way. And lastly, as a team, right, what we think is that this idea of relationships and relationship connection allows us to go beyond just marketing, if you will. And there's an ambition that says that relationships create value for not just brands, but as we create incremental value in society, that creates broader benefits. And so we see that this is an opportunity to think about how do we create sustainable, different models of growth that aren't just about acquisition or transferring one brand to transferring a consumer from one brand to another, but actually deepening a different path to growth through additional value creation through measurable and sustainable relationships. There's one other point I wanted to make, and I've got 21 seconds. Let me see. I'll see if I can get to this without freaking out. It's not coming. I guess that's it. Thank you.
So, great. Members of the jury.
Yeah, it's fascinating. How do you qualify the audience? Is it more taxonomy based on psychographic information, collaborative information, emotional information?
So we look at the relationships, obviously, against a particular audience, against a particular brand. So what's the relationship that brand has with that audience? So we look at typically the client's data that they can provide us, so we know that we're aligned with their customer base. And then we also look at third-party research data. Actually, first, we do primary research against that in a quantitative way to say, okay, against this brand, what's your relationship with that? And we look at it against multiple dimensions. One is the users of the brand. The second part is who the users would influence. Because the idea of a relationship is, if you're a really good friend of mine, you say nice things about me to other people. So it's not just a good relationship, it's not just how you react to me, but how you react to others around me. So we do that through both research and leveraging the client's data.
Who's usually your customer within the marketing department?
Who's my customer?
Yeah.
Typically the marketing director. So marketing director, CMO.
You haven't spoken much about results of using your tools. Do you have any information around that?
Yes and no. I would say I think our tools are designed to drive longer-term vision and strategy. To be honest, I'm not here to sell short-term 10% on ROI. So in that regard, that we don't have that short-term data. But what we have used the tool, for example, is one of our clients was coming into Japan, and they're looking at ways to identify what their new media strategy should be. So using the relationship score and the mapping tool, we were able to identify where their competitors were vulnerable against which media. So rather than just look at what media we should buy against our audience, but then to find chips in their armor, and they use that now to drive their media strategy. But that's a longer-term play, and we'll get longer-term results from that. But they're able to then buy more efficiently in that regard.
Thank you, thank you. So then, without further ado, I'd like to bring on stage Javier Donoso, Global Head of Enterprise Marketing Analytics from the bank BBVA.
Okay, so I think it's a very interesting service you're offering, and it's very relevant to one of our key challenges today, that's delivering excellent customer experience. And that's very easy to define qualitatively, very hard to define quantitatively. So the first thing I think this service could be useful for us is we have different silos, different departments trying to take care of this problem, but they don't have a clear goal. A goal you can set quantitatively, something that can set direction for everyone. So that could be the number one benefit. Number two, it's the same thing with competitors. We are usually tackling the problem just looking at ourselves. But it's very important to determine how we fare against competitors. So if we, again, have some quantitative way to see how we fare against competitors, it can help us set the strategy and align these whole departments in the same way. And third, looking at our customers, our clients, if we can identify different dimensions where we can better relate to them, it can help us focus our efforts, our marketing efforts. And again, these whole departments that were shooting in different directions, they have clear, quantitatively set objectives. They can more easily be aligned and drive to the goal. Overall, what I'd like to highlight is that we have plenty of tools for performance. We have plenty of tools for ROI, what you said. We don't have that many quantitative tools, data-based ways to tackle different problems like this one. That's a really critical one. So that's where I think this can be really, really useful.
Great. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Let's give him a hand.